Alright, Mind Over Matter, Explosive Arrow Elementalist, quick build guide, ready, go. Going to start it off with a map, nothing special on it, mostly just the enfeeble. Show off the build, and then we will get into the specifics of the actual setup afterwards. So for the most part, it's the same idea as most of the explosive arrow builds we've had the last few leagues, with the only real notable change being Mind Over Matter instead of going blood magic, thanks to the new mana nodes behind Mind Over Matter, making it a lot more viable and giving you a really big total HP pool buff. So the build ends up being a lot tankier than most pure blood magic setups are, at least for Witch, since most Witch builds you top out around 9k life. Right now I'm sitting at about 10,500 total effective life with some extra mitigation that I'll go over on the passive tree. Yeah, it clears maps, as you can see, pretty damn fast. It's really smooth gameplay, and the AoE changes don't really feel like they've affected it all that much because of how much distance you can cover with GMP on top of Prolif for your ignites. Now this character is pretty decked out. By this point I'm level 98, and my gear is some of the best I've had at this point in the Temp League. So I'm able to kill a little bit quicker than if you were on a tight budget. But yeah, that's the map. Like I said, it goes pretty fast, works really well. Let's get into the details. On the passive tree, we're an Elementalist. Get these out of the way. We've got Leaves of the Primordial, Beacon of Ruin, and Paragon of Calamity. This one's really important, but you don't actually need it until Uber Lab, because that's about when you'll probably be gearing out and getting a lot of damage. It's where Reflect becomes an issue. For the regular nodes, it's pretty much just life, mana, fire damage area stuff. We go right out of Witch over to the Heart and Soul, life, mana, snag the flask nodes, which pretty much any build I think that goes here should grab them. Heart of Flame for the fire pen, Elemental Overload, because we are not RT, so we're actually getting a little bit of accuracy, and we're hoping to keep this buff up all the time. And since we attack so fast with the Quill Rain, it's actually pretty easy to keep this buff on pretty much throughout the entire map. Mind Over Matter, the nodes behind it for the huge mana pool. And then the big thing is this jewel right here, Spirited Response. Gives a little bit of mana, that's cool, whatever. But when you have 40 int in the radius, 10% of the damage you take is gained as mana. So that's basically the same as having roughly 10% damage mitigation, because you go from when I get hit, instead of 70 to my life, 70% of the damage to my life and 30 to my mana, it becomes more like 70 to my life and 20 to my mana, and then the other 10 just gets absorbed. So we keep going down here from that, grab EE, get some more life. Get Tireless, this one's really important since Mind Over Matter and mana is actually an issue to sustain. The life plus reduced mana cost, same with this one, mana plus reduced mana cost and Righteous Decree you want to make sure to grab. Get the Templar life, Templar AoE. Precision for the dexterity and the accuracy, because like I said, we're Elemental Overload, so we can miss, we do want some accuracy. And then just more life nodes down to Marauder, as well as Barbarism for the max fire res. And for jewels, you're looking for mostly the same thing as the rest of the tree: life, fire damage, area damage, and whatever resists you may need. For bandits, I went Help Oak and Normal for the life, Kill All and Cruel, and then I helped Creighton and Merciless for the Frenzy charge, since we're running Blood Rage on most maps. Now for the gear, once again, my gear is pretty topped out, minus the quiver. But weapon, you need Quill Rain. 100% if you're playing Explosive Arrow and you want your build to feel good, feel smooth, you need Quill Rain. You actually need two. But the second one Doesn't need to be a 6 link, you can stop it at a 5 link if you're trying to save money. For helmet, Devotos gives you dex, which you need a ton of, move speed for your map clearing, and then chaos res and attack speed are also very helpful. Amulet, I'm using a Namahu Tiki, once again a bunch of fire damage, double dips, good stuff. Chest, Comb's Heart, because we don't need sockets here, and then the rest of the items are pretty much just rares, and on your rares you're shooting for things like high life, high mana, good resists. So you see this ring, life, mana, res. My boots, life, move speed, a bunch of res, and then dex, because you do need dex on one other item besides the Devotos to have enough to use your explosive arrow. Belt, life, res, flask, flask mod. Gloves, life, mana, res, a little bit of accuracy. Ring, life, mana, res, accuracy. And ideally, if you can set up your gear and you can put as much money in as you have to afford, you get double opal rings over a 2-stone for the extra elemental damage. And for flasks, you got a quicksilver, sulfur, basalt, the wise oak, new flask, we'll go over that in a second, and then your life flask. And I would recommend getting heat on your life flask, since the other options are warding, which you don't really want because hex font can screw with you. It just spams curses, and this can't keep removing them. Staunching, which again you don't want to have to keep spamming thanks to breaches putting bleeds on you non-stop. And adrenaline, for hopefully obvious reasons, that stays on the flask. Now the Wise Oak new flask, if you're not familiar, during the flask effect you take 10% reduced damage for whatever your lowest res is, and you gain 20% penetration for whatever your highest is. And those two, the 10% and the 20%, do get affected by flask effect. So with the 30% here, it becomes 13% reduced taken and 26 pen. And when it says your uncapped elemental resistance, what it's talking about is this number right here in parentheses. And if you'll notice, mine are all balanced. They're all exactly the same, because if you balance them out, you end up getting both buffs for all 3 elements. So I take, when I use this flask, 13% reduced damage for all 3 elements, and then I also gain the pen for all 3 elements, but the fire pen's the only one we care about as far as that part goes. And it ends up working out really well because there's not really a good offensive flask. The other option, if you feel like you don't need damages, you could run a Roomies alongside a rear guard and try to get your block pretty close to cap to become tankier. That's about it. The only real change, like I said, is a rear guard over the rare quiver, but I do like having a rare quiver for the crit chance and the life and then chaos res. I haven't upgraded this one in a while. It's got kind of lackluster chaos res, but it has a lot of life and it has crit chance, which helps you proc the LE overload. Now for leveling, what I would recommend to do is level as Firestorm into Firestorm totems into Flameblast totems, and then swap to Explosive Arrow sometime during Merciless Stride Lake, whenever you can get your hands on a 5-link Cool Rain and you're ready to go and you've got your at least first 2 labs done. And for lab order while leveling, you should get Liege of the Primordial first. The double golems give you a ton of damage and some cast speed and attack speed. Then Shaper, then Beacon, then Paragon. And I will put a rough outline of what a leveling tree should look like for level 50 to 55 if you're leveling with the Flameblast totems. I will put that in the description. And I believe that is it. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the build. If you have any questions, make sure to ask. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. And I will see you next time.